You're listening to an IOE podcast.
Powered by UCL Minds.
Welcome to the ECF Staffroom. I'm Elaine Long.
And I am Mark Quinn.
We are programme leaders for the UCL Early Career Teacher Development Programme. Why are we in the staff room? We are here because this is where the best professional learning conversations always take place. This is where problems can be aired bluntly and where solutions can be explored.
Over the course of this series, we will hear the voices of different colleagues as they come into the ECF staff room. We will hear from early career teachers themselves and from the mentors and induction tutors who support them. We will talk about all things ECF, the challenges and the joys. So why don't you enjoy a coffee with us, perhaps even grab a biscuit and sit down to half an hour of ECF staff room chat. Welcome to the ECF staff room. We've got Nathan and Mitchell and Daniel have all just walked into the staff room. They've had a busy day, I can see. Oh, yep, they need to take their seats. Make sure you are comfortable, guys. Take a good seat. Serve yourself a coffee. Put your feet up. Just when we're on the subject of coffee, we always like to ask our guests what their hot drink is, what their hot drink favorite is. So Nathan, how do you take your coffee?
I'm more of a tea man, to be honest. Tea, 2 sugars and milk, that'll do me.
2 sugars and milk, it'll kill you, Nathan.
I know, my wife keeps saying that, yeah.
What about you, Mitchell?
For me, it's just plain espresso. Sometimes I refer to it as gasoline to keep me going throughout the day. But yeah, plain black coffee. One
or several get you through the day?
Several, often.
Several. Daniel?
I'm a coffee person myself. I was a barista before being a teacher, so I'm very particular on my coffee. I wait, I grind my own beans, I filter my coffee, like we do in Brazil. It's just the way I like it, black and pure.
Well, we should have asked you the question first and not bothered with Nathan or Mitchell, I think. We should just let you take the subject further.
I'm sure there are teachers up and down the country now, Daniel, that really want you to be their work best buddy so they can benefit from their excellent coffees, because I think everyone's coffee is starting to feel a bit inadequate now compared to the ones that you're serving up. But I'm a tea person as well, Nathan, so I'm pleased to hear that there's some support for the tea drinkers out there, because it shouldn't all be about the coffee drinkers. Can I just ask you all to introduce yourselves for our listeners, please? So could you just tell us your name and your role and a bit about what you do, starting with Nathan?
Yeah, so I'm Nathan Williams. I'm a teacher of drama, and I'm doing a little bit of geography for this year. And I teach Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 currently.
My name is Mitchell Scott. I'm a teacher of social sciences at the Blue Coat School. Within that includes politics, psychology, sociology and citizenship. And therefore predominantly I teach Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5.
I am Daniel Roy Pereira. I am a science teacher and I teach biology as well. But this is my job. I love science since I was a kid, and it's my pleasure to carry on teaching this.
Oh, well, it seems like we've got a lot of experience and enthusiasm in the ECF staff room, so we're very lucky. And Daniel, you've led me on to the next question, actually, that I'm going to ask Nathan to start us off with. What made you become a teacher, and what route have you taken to this point?
Interesting. I finished university and wanted to go into work, really get into the industry. I did a theatre-based course at university, and I moved to Manchester, wanted to get into kind of theatre, TV, and managed to get a job and kind of did work experience, really. Worked for many years. And then part of my job took me into schools. So I used to meet a lot of drama teachers and technicians, etc. And I went into, funny enough, actually, I went into the Blue Coat School as one of my appointments. I got talking to the head of drama at the time, and yeah, she kind of went, we just having a great chat, and I was like, you know what, actually, the passion that she had, it just oozed from her. And I've throughout my years as I was younger, I used to dance and I used to teach dancing. So teaching and kind of working with kids, I've always, I used to get a joy from it, shall I say? And I suppose what she did is she kind of reignited that joy and that kind of that passion that she had for teaching.
Yeah, and I can pick out a couple of similarities between your story there, Nathan, and my own. I equally finished university and was, with the mindset of heading into the business world and joining the career. For me, it was a law degree, so I was aiming for a career in law, and I was fortunate enough to have done quite a few vacation schemes during my degree in different law firms, and I was coming out of uni. I had a training contract all lined up. But while I was in that legal environment and while I was in that sort of corporate world, I had a bit of a moment really where, I just felt like this isn't fulfilling the moral side of what I was looking for. Yeah, it was great. Money was great and the, the prospects were looking bright, but it just wasn't satisfying that sort of deeper desire that I had to contribute something to society in a meaningful way.
With me, I started, this was kind of, I never wanted to be a teacher when I was doing my university degree in Brazil, was doing life sciences, biology in Brazil in 2003. And I wanted to be a paleontologist, but I wanted to go around digging fossils and things like that. It was the thing I was really going for. But on the last year of university, my friends told me I was really good at explaining things to them to revise for the exams. And I said, all right, I think I can see what this is going. I decided to take up teaching in Brazil in 2008, was a supply teacher. Then I got my first job as a teacher, worked simultaneously in state schools and private schools, as it is the educational system in Brazil. But then I lost the passion for it because it was a tough life. The salary was not great, working from 7 a.m. to sometimes 11 p.m., working 3 shifts. It was really something. We decided to move abroad, and I worked as a barista and, funnily enough, as a secondary school cleaner in Dublin when I was learning how to speak English. And then it was one of the moments that was really fascinating because I was just chilling at home watching a documentary. It was the remake of Cosmos by Carl Sagan, but it was the remake by DeGrasse Tyson. And there was a moment in the first episode when he starts talking about how Carl Sagan inspired him to become an astrophysicist and things like that. And literally that moved me to tears. I said, right, I miss teaching. I want to go back and I'm really okay and inspire the next generation of scientists or whatever they want to be. I just want to be for them.
That's fabulous. I love listening to teachers talk about their route into the profession. When I was working with teachers very directly when I was in schools, I always ask them that question. I called it their self-sustaining story, the story they keep having to remind themselves that would enable them to come back the next day. If you have a bad day today, you have to remind yourself to come back the next day. And what is it? And and it might be crying over Carl Sagan, or it might be memories of making coffee in Dublin, or whatever it might be. But you do need, I think it's really important actually, you have to keep reminding yourself of the reasons why it might be. Being inspired by another teacher is a very common experience for teachers. Obviously a big shout out for Blue Coat School here. They've got a lot to answer for, haven't they?
Certainly, definitely.
But we feel like we just crowded out our staff room with paleontologists and lawyers and dramatists and all sorts. But that's all to the good. No experience is wasted in the classroom, I always say. We've gathered you here in this staff room because actually you're in quite a privileged position from our point of view, because it's now the end of May. You're at it's the year 2 of the program for you. You've been experiencing the early rollout version of this program. Which means you've been working on practitioner inquiries, and we're fascinated. Elaine and I are really, really interested to hear what that's been like for you. So you're probably still doing your inquiry at the moment, your third inquiry for module 8. So really want to know what it is you're working on right now, what that inquiry is, maybe just what your question is even, and what are you finding out? What are you finding out is working or is not working, for that matter?
Yeah, so mine this year, although it's my second year teaching, it is actually only my first year teaching GCSE. So what I wanted to kind of focus on was kind of perhaps my year 10 students, and how I can really help them through their GCSE program. So my question that I was looking to explore originally was, is the feedback I'm giving to my year 10 GCSE students on their assessments allowing them to act accordingly to increase their grades? Now, that was the initial question itself. And what I found from that is that through help and from the UCL, from my mentor, from group sessions that we did, actually my exploration of this my question was far too wide, and it needed to be a bit more specific. And also as well, I needed to be able to measure, what does that success criteria look like? So between myself and my mentor, we kind of changed the question slightly to what extent is the feedback I am giving to my year 10 GCSE students on their assessments, allowing them to progress individually to increase their grades? So really, I think my focus was I wanted my students to be able to, I suppose I wanted my feedback to be meaningful. I didn't want it just to be lip service, I suppose. I wanted them to take something from it. I wanted them to then do something with it, and hopefully see that progression in their work. So a whole school approach, a whole school bit of CPD we've been doing is looking at tier 2 and tier 3 language, how students can access subject specific higher level language, but also subject specific language. So I've made a real focus on making sure that the language I use, it is all drama skills and drama techniques related, so that actually can they then recall that information when they're answering a question, for example? If not, why are they not doing that? And I was able to measure that, first of all, by asking them a question and seeing if they could answer it back and give me some drama terminology just through verbal. And then what I wanted them to do then is then be able to take that verbal conversation and put it down on paper. So when they're answering a GCSE question, I want to see that content written down. So I looked at my year 10 students. We narrowed it, chopping and changing. We narrowed it down again to I was looking at 3 specific students. Not necessarily boys or girls. It just so happens that 2 were girls, 1 was a boy, but a high ability, a middle ability, and a low ability student. Just to try and get a bit of a range of data. And kind of getting towards the end of it now in terms of my inquiry, and I found out loads of things. The reason I mentioned 2 girls, 1 was a boy, because actually I found that the girls have actually seemed to excel more in my inquiry, whereas the boy is still struggling a little bit with writing it down. He can answer my questions, but he's struggling to write it down. So, if I was to continue this inquiry further or to explore it perhaps next year, I'd perhaps look at, is it an issue where boys are struggling more with it than they are with girls? So I can kind of refine my inquiry and take it further. And I suppose for me, that's what I've learned from doing this inquiry. Actually, I started off with question A, it turned into question B, into question C. But actually my results and what I've come out with at the end of the day is that there's so many more questions that I could answer as well. I've done a lot of I've got a lot of results, and I've kind of got answers to questions, but then that's also led to other questions. But to be honest, quite enjoyed it, and I think being my first GCSE cohort this year, it's really focused my teaching. I don't feel like it's been any kind of additional work. If anything, it's kind of focused it's channeled me to in my planning, in the delivery of how I'm delivering my lessons, and then also kind of what do I want to get from those lessons as well. So I think as a whole whole rounded approach, I think it's worked for me, this inquiry.
Yeah, it's great to hear that, Nathan. And actually, again, another similarity that's cropping up there is that sort of focus of feedback, because my inquiry, my most recent inquiry, has also been focused on that feedback. And it sounds like we had very sort of similar ideas going into coming up with these questions, because my question was also focusing primarily on how can I get my students to act on the feedback I'm providing them in lessons. Because while it might have been your first year teaching GCSE this year, I've been teaching A-level classes due to the nature of my subjects ever since I was training. So some of those very early lessons I took during my training year were with year 13 and year 12 classes. So from the very get-go, I've had massive of experience with formative and summative assessment, specifically with assessments where feedback is needed and students need to act on that. And it's always been an area that I've observed in my own practice and in other colleagues' practice. There seems to be a missing link somewhere, and my department as a whole this year have been focusing on what can be done to improve our feedback strategies. So I took the opportunity of this inquiry and the opportunity of the time I get given on the ECT course to use that time to try and bring some benefit to the department by exploring the question of what can I do to improve students' outcomes by using feedback effectively. And again, my core focus on that ended up being, after a few tweaks and changes, what can I do to help my students act on the feedback successfully? And a little bit like yourself, Nathan, as well, it sort of seems like my question started in one place and sort of has deviated and sort of jumped all over the place a little bit. But when it comes to how do students respond to that feedback, a key thing that I had to first of all ask myself is, well, what feedback are they getting? Is it effective feedback? We in my school context like to use whole class feedback quite often as a useful strategy, and I think there are lots of benefits to that. But if you're asking students then to act on that feedback and it's all very general, then students are going to struggle to attach themselves to it. So alongside that whole class feedback and those techniques, which again are really effective in the classroom, I also had to ask myself, well, what individual feedback were students getting? And for me, that led me down this route of metacognition and metacognitive strategies, because I realised that I need students to be able to pick out their own targets from their assessment. If I'm spending time to mark a piece of work and provide them with some feedback all over it, they need to then look at that work and come up with their own targets that they can act upon before they start to actually make any progress. So a lot of my focus this time in the inquiry has been on teaching those metacognitive self-regulating strategies that they can implement themselves into their own work. And anytime they get given a piece of assessed work back now, they are able to look at it, use the strategies we've taught them to pick out the areas of development and the areas of strength too, because it's dead important to get them to recognise what they're doing well. And using those targets, they can now implement, identify what the areas of development are. And again, I've also been very explicit in modelling strategies they can use to make the gaps and bridge the areas that their assessments have been previously lacking. So I again, sort of very similar to yourself, I was focusing on a very small cohort of students to make this manageable and make this something I could deal with. So I've been focusing on 5 year 12 students, using year 12 because I will see them again next year, so I can actually extend this beyond just the time frame of the the module, rather than my year 13s who have now all disappeared. I focus on 5 year 12 students, and again, I've been getting them to set themselves targets. I've been modelling what can they do to improve that, and now I'm at the point towards the end of this module where I'm looking for the impact. So I'm looking at, well, what impact has that actually had on their outcomes, and have they truly made progress against those targets? And I'm actually going to be presenting my findings to the rest of my department after half term. So hopefully I'll be able to share with my colleagues what I've found useful from that, things that haven't worked, because there's been a lot of things that I've tried and they haven't had any impact, or very little impact, so there wouldn't be things I would recommend using in the future, or at least if I did use them again, I'd want to tweak and adapt them further. And again, that's the beauty of this process. It allows you to experiment, it gives you that time to innovate, and not everything's going to work. Sometimes it's a case of throwing things until something sticks, and I have got things that have stuck, which is fantastic. But yeah, not everything's worked. And again, I can share that with my feedbacks with my colleagues, because they might be doing something similar, and that might get them to think, oh, well, I do that, and if it's not having the impact, maybe I need to change it. So I'll have the opportunity after half term to share with the rest of my department what strategies I found effective in helping students actively respond to feedback.
I have two questions that I've been working on, a smaller one and a big one. That was the orientation we had from the courses that we had. So we in science we have a problem that is equations. Now we have many problems in science teaching, but one of them is teaching equations. How do pupils solve equations? How do they approach the equations? And I have, by talking to my mentor, we came to a question, specific question that I was going to explore, which was I found a worksheet online which I found useful. And we were having, curiously, we were having in our school a kind of direction for CPG, which was pretty similar to Nathan's, what they were exploring, how to actually streamline the vocabulary and reduce scaffolding to the children so they can develop more independence. So my research question was this one, the first one. How can I develop my use of the reduced scaffolding sheet, that's how we called it, implemented for the topic of energy to improve pupils' equation skills in science among us, the small sample of year 7 students. So I've decided to work like we learn in the ECT module, to work with 6 pupils. So I chose 6 pupils to work with. We applied the equation sheet and adapted it. So the equation pretty much works like that. It has 5 questions. The first one is completely solved. Then we take away the unit for the second question. Then we take away the part of solving the equation for the third question. Then we take away something else, and then it's an empty space. So pupils work with it. Now, after the first application, pupils struggle a lot with answering the questions. I didn't know why. So I looked for input from a physics teacher because I'm a biologist. So I said, right, okay, Mr. Physics teacher, what am I doing wrong here? I want to change that. So funnily enough, the first thing he pointed out was the layout of the worksheet, because as we do in Brazil, we solve equations top to bottom. So because we tend to solve equations top to bottom, I was thinking that way. Whereas he pointed out to me that it was easier for the pupils if they solved left to right, because that's how they would answer in a paper. So I said, all right, I get the logic. So I adapted the layout of the worksheet, added a few tweaks. The equation triangle we used to help them to rearrange equations. And then on that second application, I noticed that the pupils were way better in answering those questions. They responded really well to that. And also that they started developing their skills. They were asking fewer questions, and they were able to solve more questions as we progressed. As a result, I adapted the equation sheet for all the topics of physics in Key Stage 3, and I started using with my top set year 8. And this week we had the last time that we used it was in the topic of electromagnetism, and pupils were really confident in answering the questions. And then I added another level of it, which was giving a whole classroom feedback by using a visualizer and solving the equations in front of them in silence. So I used the silent mode to solve the equations. They were looking at me, looking actually at the board, seeing the teacher solving the equations and thinking about it. So I was covering the equation triangle, finding how to rearrange equations, and then asking them for feedback. Do you see what I'm doing here, kids? And then they were, yeah, oh, yes, sir, I get it. How many of you got I mean, I've made a mistake here. And they would say, oh, sir, you've mistaken the unit. It's not ohms, it's amperes. Oh, right, yeah, you got it, kid. So it was really good. It was really fun to do, and I really enjoyed that. And then in parallel with that, and that was the big research question that I was working on, and I am still working on that. It has to do with my professional development, because in the lockdown, when the lockdown started, I don't know why or how it happened, but I started a master's degree in Brazil, a master's in education. Don't ask, guys, it just happened. It happened. I got an invitation from a professor I knew from before. I applied for the process. got the position, started doing a master's. It was online because it couldn't be presential because of the lockdown in both of the countries. So, right. So I said to myself, when in Christmas 2001, we had the task of getting a bigger inquiry practice. I said, right, I'm gonna go back and revisit some of the things I was working before. And what happened was during lockdown, we had to rewrite all the units for science, for the Key Stage 3 curriculum. My task was to rewrite the unit for health and lifestyle for year 8. Now, I've used that using Bloom's taxonomy because it was the framework I was familiar with from when I arrived in England. I didn't know that in Brazil. So I said, I want to know whether this thing really works for me, because some teachers were saying Bloom's taxonomy doesn't work. Others say it does. And I was curious. I was really curious. So I say, right, this is what I'm going to do. And then I wrote my second research question. It was this: does my use of Bloom's revised taxonomy for planning, implemented for the topic of B4, health and lifestyle, improves questioning in my lessons? So I wanted to reflect on my own practice by doing that. So what I've done is I got the unit together, and then I put it in a content analysis software. And by doing that, I discovered that I was actually planning lessons they were rich in retrieval questions, and they were really rich in conceptual questions. But there was not an opportunity for the pupils to develop creativity in that topic inside the topic. So this is my next question that I'm going to explore next year. If that was the case for my practice, how can I see that pupils are learning in that same unit? So now I analyzed my practice, my questioning, and I discovered some things about my questioning practice that I really I'm developing now. But now I want to see what impact that has in my pupils' learning. So that's my next stage of this inquiry. So as Mitch was saying, it was a question that led to more questions, that led to more questions. And the whole process is really enjoyable. I'm really enjoying this. I mean, it seems like a lot when you first hear about it. It seems like you're going to do a lot of work, but actually it's not that bad. I don't feel like it was really bad. I took it upon myself to put it in a software analysis, a content analysis software, just because I am like that. But I didn't have to do it. But I was really curious in how to do it, and it worked really, really, really well for me. So I am looking forward to the answers and the questions I'm going to develop next year.
It's so pleasing to hear, Daniel, that you really enjoyed it, because one of the ambitions we had when we set out to write the program was that we really wanted people to enjoy developing it as a profession. And we sometimes don't use that word in education. It's almost like teachers have to be martyrs and then they're not allowed to enjoy things. But one of the many things that struck me as you three were talking about your practitioner inquiries was a sense of enjoyment in doing it, and also a sense that you're not afraid to fail, that you definitely tweaked your question, you evolved your question, you recognized that some stuff would fail, and that was absolutely fine, and that there's a real determination from the three of you as well for this to have an impact on student outcomes. And I think that's where the enjoyment really comes from, because linking back to your sense of purpose earlier. And the other thing I was thinking was, it's a good job Daniel knows how to make a cup of coffee, because I don't know how he manages to do all those things at once. You've already kind of touched on how this has affected your development as a professional, but I wanted to ask you a bit more about that, because again, one of our ambitions for the practitioner inquiry approach is not only does it improve your knowledge of the ECF and that research base, not only does it mean that you're able to apply the knowledge to your school, to your students, to your classroom, but also that it becomes a habit a mindset and attitude that you take with you throughout your career. And I wonder if, starting with Nathan, I could just ask you what practitioner inquiry has taught you about the importance of developing as a professional.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's definitely helped, I think, in my confidence, but confidence in my ability to teach. You know, anyone can kind of come in and take a scheme of work and kind of run with a scheme of work, but actually, when you're, you know, when I'm kind of now looking at GCC and I'm being more subject specific, these are these are students that are, you know, looking to me to gain that knowledge and understanding of what drama's all about. Actually, it's given me the confidence, this inquiry, for the ability to teach and to be able to deliver, you know, a high level, rich curriculum that we all kind of strive for. And because what the inquiries allowed me to do is to teach a lesson, you know, do look at those kind of tier 2, tier 3 level words, think about my questioning, so in terms of my planning, then my delivery, but then actually when I'm looking at the data and I'm assessing their work, when we're at a formative or a summative point, well, actually, let's reflect on it. Have they achieved what I wanted them to achieve? Yes, great if they have. How can I push them further? But I suppose the question is, how can I push them all further, whether they've achieved or not? How can I move them along in their journey? So that's where I think my inquiry kind of pushed me in terms of personal development, because it really made me think, right, what do I need to do? Or what can I do to help them? Well, actually, feedback, give them meaningful feedback, give them something they can work with, and not something that they're going to use to put their tea or coffee on. You know, can I be inspirational? Can I give them what they need to help them and to improve? So I think for me, it's been personal development in terms of improving my classroom, my confidence in ability to teach.
Yeah, and I completely agree with your sort of reflection there, Nathan, in terms of sort of building the confidence. I think that's been a massive sort of impact on myself as well through these through the engagement with these inquiry projects. And for me, you know, thinking to you know, what has it sort of taught me, you know, the importance of being, you know, constantly developing my practice. I truly have found the benefit from having that opportunity to innovate in the classroom, because especially with COVID and the disruption to you know, students learning up and down the country, as teachers and just as ECTs, we were put into this whole new realm of, you know, what does teaching look like, what does learning look like, and we were presented with a variety of different obstacles and barriers to overcome in our own practice. And for many people, it really was, you know, wiping the slate clean and thinking, right, back to basics. What do I know works, and how can I change that and tweak that for this, you know, this new method of delivery? And thinking about sort of my own reflections, you know, I've really tried to take that opportunity of COVID and breaking things back down to basics as an opportunity to rebuild, and, you know, being an ECT, build my practice for the very first time. And having the opportunity to innovate as part of these inquiry projects really does, you know, allow me to, you know, try new things and you know, explore new methods to teach particular parts of content. And my mentor in particular, which I'm sure he won't mind me sharing, has took a step back and reflected on his own practice through the discussions we've been having in our mentor meetings. You know, he's consistently saying to me, you know, you're really making me step back, you know, from my established career that he's had, and thinking, you know, again, back to the basics. Well, I could be doing that better, or I really like the sound of what you've tried there. So having that room to innovate really does allow, you know, not just me to try new things and develop my own practice, but then being able to share that with my mentor allows them to sort of really gain from, you know, the opportunity to innovate and try new ideas. Because I think for a lot of established practitioners, you know, they don't get that opportunity, or at least they feel like they don't have the opportunity to try new things. You know, they find something that works, they've got a million and one other responsibilities to attend to, so they stick with that thing that they know that's going to work, even if it's, you know, not the most effective, or even if it's not, you know, maximizing students' capabilities and the opportunities that they have. So, you know, I think as far as possible, all, you know, members of staff in the school should be involved in the ECT project to some degree, whether that's being an ECT yourself, whether it's being a mentor, whether it's hearing feedback from ECTs who have done these inquiry projects, just to allow them to reflect on, you know, their own practice and really, you know, take that take that benefit of having the time to innovate and change and you know, try and change things in a classroom that we get, because again, that not every teacher has that, and it's certainly something moving forward. You know, next year after the end of the ECT course, so to speak, I'm going to try and make sure I make time in my own routine to try these new things. You know, the course might end there in terms of, you know, the guidance and the guideline, but for me, I'm going to try and extend it beyond just this 2-year limit and really, you know, approach every year with some sort of project, some sort of inquiry that I can develop my own practice on. And sort of linking back to what you were saying, Daniel, earlier, you know, it's not about making yourself an extra workload. It's about doing things you're already doing and tweaking and refining it. And I think every member of staff in a school, every teacher can make time for that, even if, you know, it doesn't seem to present it to themselves in their own current routine.
Teaching, I've been teaching for more than 10 years. In my particular journey from Brazil to England, teaching is very demanding. It's a very demanding career. We mark books, we plan lessons, we replan lessons, we tweak lessons that we had planned, that we planned again. And we keep doing that all the time. And we have to manage classroom, we have to go to meetings, we do all this kind of stuff. And we have our lives to live outside the schools as well. So we don't have much time as teachers, as classroom teachers, to read a lot of research. I mean, there are organizations that break this down for you, and it's very good. But as a teacher yourself, you are faced with problems that researchers in universities are not facing. So you have a specific set of pupils with a specific set of backgrounds and a specific set of difficulties that only you can sort out. And I think this is the whole process of the participating in the ECT, and especially learning how to do this kind of action research, this inquiry practitioner, it helped me to develop so much, not only as a confident teacher, but as a teacher that can reinvent himself in the classroom over and over. Because now I feel like after 10 years of trial and error, I finally have a method that I can follow. And this is really, really valuable to teachers, to myself personally, because I can see now, because I have a method to ask questions in my classroom, I can see the questions now that I previously couldn't see. So a question about this question about the reduced scaffolding sheet that I was working on, it was something that I wouldn't have read in a research, in a paper, in an article. It came out of the classroom. And the other question about planning my own lessons based on a single taxonomy of learning taxonomy, this came from my journey as a practitioner. It came from my set of difficulties, and it was really valuable to learn insights from that experience. So I do agree with you guys. I think this process of being this kind of reflective practitioner that does its own research. I mean, as a teacher, you do your own research with the methods that you've been given, with the workload that you have, and it's not more than that. This is so valuable. We can finally, from my perspective, I can finally approach problems in my classroom that I am confident to deal with. And this is going to help me for years to come. And I mean, as you learn more and more about the process and you refine that, the pupils that are going to be in your classroom are going to be really, really benefited from that. Because if you are a good teacher that reflects on your own practice and you reinvent yourself, good for the kids, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we, Nathan, Mitchell, and Daniel, I think we should remind the listener of this program, of this podcast, that we haven't paid you to say any of this. In fact, actually, because of you are experiencing this particular version of the program, your schools aren't even being paid for you to do this. You are the volunteers. You are the pioneers, really, of this program. And and there's just so much richness in what you said. Absolutely, Daniel, your whole point about we really do want this form of practitioner inquiry to help our teachers to connect what might be existing in the research base with what is real for their own classrooms, to see those connections, to see those overlaps, but to find something new. But you're absolutely right. There are thousands and thousands of academic researchers, and they've written thousands and thousands of papers, but not a single one of them has ever written a paper on your classroom. Only you can do that. Absolutely, only you can do that, and therefore only you. And Mitchell, thank you for reminding us of the benefits of involving other members of staff with this, particularly in your case, your mentor. And you remind us earlier that you're going to present your findings to your wider department and hopefully enrich what the conversation that takes place there as well. But you are all working in unique circumstances. You know, very specific pupils are teaching very specific subjects at very specific moments. And only teacher inquiry, action research, call it what you will, only that can get to the detail, the specifics of what you might need to do in order to improve your own practice. And it's just lovely to hear you talk about it in your own words. It really is. So I'm going to ask you about how changed you think you feel. You are right near the end of the 2 years of this program. Daniel's reminded us more than once that he's very old and he's been teaching for a very long time. So he might answer the question in a slightly different way. That's up to him. So I want to know how changed you feel you are at this point of the program as you reach the end of it. And if you can shine a light on it for us, what do you think has made that difference? What has led to that change? And you know, as you speak, you might sort of respond to each other as well. But Nathan, can you pick that up first?
Yeah, so I think from when I started to now, I would say that I've definitely changed, and I think it's just an accumulation of just a bit of everything, really. In terms of my school have been very good in terms of CPD, and kind of helping in whole school CPD, and giving a bit of a direction and a focus about how to develop. Because actually, I think one of the scary prospects is that you kind of go through your training year, and you're looking at this, you're looking at that, you're looking at practitioners, you're looking at inquiries, you're looking at you're reading, and you're doing so much to help you to be the best teacher you can be. And then suddenly you get given your classes and your schemes of work, and then you're having to teach. And I think Daniel makes a good point that you kind of perhaps we don't get time to do that anymore, or we don't get time to look at those things anymore. So certainly for me, I would say the support of my mentor has been massive. You know, without her help or her guidance, and going through the program, the UCL program, I wouldn't have said I would have struggled, but it gave us a focus. You know, so I'd read some of the inquiries that you'd put on some of the case studies, and I'd be able to relate to it, and I'd be like, brilliant. That's what I was. That was, you know, and more than anything, having that conversation with a mentor, that dedicated time to help me, was massive. And I think that really helped me, just having that conversation, you know, because we'd read the case study and then she'd say, right, put yourself in the shoes, you know, how can you relate that to your teaching practice? What are you going to do next? And it helped me just to reflect and to think, right, okay, what am I going to do? So definitely say my mentor. I work in a fantastic department, being drama. I'm one of three now at my school as it's growing. So we're quite quite close. We're always sharing ideas, resources, and we're always supporting each other, and I think that's massive. I have been looking over the years to teach English, and then this year, like I say, geography, so I get to see the flip side of that and work in bigger departments as well. If I think back to last year, I would think I was one of maybe 14, 15, which is completely different to drama in terms of English. So but again, the support was there. And what was nice actually is you can go and ask other people and other teachers, and you can see how other people are doing things and how they're teaching and dropping in on their lessons. And so I think having that department support has been massive for me, certainly in my drama being my core subject. And then finally, just like I said before, the whole school approach. this year I've really enjoyed looking at, we've looked at metacognition, but also as well this idea of language, and that's really helped me. And that's really helped me, I think, in my delivery of my subject content to the students. And actually as well, doing geography and doing English, it's also helped me looking at the language of those subjects. You know, what are the key words that I need to be getting across to the students? What do they need to know? And being conscious of what I need to get across to them as well. So yeah, for me, it's that three-prong attack. Definitely my mentor, and being able to reflect on my practice and how I'm getting on. Being in a really great department where it's supportive, we can lean on each other for help and guidance and advice, and they're subject people that are teaching what I'm teaching. Obviously, my mentor's not necessarily that, so it's nice to have that perspective. And then finally, having that whole school approach where I'm able to kind of, this is what we're attacking as a school, and being part of, well, actually, I know that across the school, we are looking at metacognition, we are looking at retrieval practice, we are looking at tier 2 and tier 3 language, you know, based on your subjects. So yeah, being a part of that team. So definitely, that journey's been great, and I think it's really helped my confidence in terms of I'm not being left now. Now I'm a teacher, and I've done my teacher training, I'm not being left to it, but actually that support's going to continue. It's just in a different way, and perhaps I've got to have the confidence to put my hand up and say, can I ask a question, or, you know, can someone help me? And having the confidence to do that. Like you say, everyone's busy, time's precious, time is key, but actually being able to reflect and ask for that help and support can sometimes be massive.
Yeah, it's great to hear, sort of, Nathan, how you sort of reflected on your journey and sort of the things you've taken away from it. And again, as it seems to be a common theme here, I'm finding a lot of similarities between sort of your own journey and my experience as well. I would actually say that when it comes to sort of the change, I feel far more change in my own practice and my approach to teaching now at the end of year 2 than I definitely did at the end of year 1 of the ECT scheme. I was extremely fortunate to do my initial teacher training with Manchester Nexus Skit, and they were very much research led and, you know, very much focusing on the academia and translating that to the classroom. So the year 1 program very much for me almost felt like repetition, useful repetition, and, you know, embedding those further into my own practice. But it was very repetitive to my initial teacher training experience, which again had been so supportive and fantastic that, you know, if you'd asked me this question a year ago, I wouldn't necessarily know of how to respond to it. Or, you know, yes, I'd changed, I'd got better and, you know, grown more confident, but there wouldn't have been a huge change in my approach to teaching. At the end of year 2 of this program, and, you know, going through this research inquiry project style of learning and developing my practice, the changes are, you know, night and day. You know, not only has my confidence grown within how I'm approaching teaching, again, as it would naturally with time, but actually, again, having that room to innovate and having that room to, you know, really think about what's going to benefit my learners in my classroom, and being able to, you know, design these inquiries and try out these new strategies to make that impact in that room with those students sat in front of you has been something that, you know, truly has opened my eyes to, you know, again, not just being confident in my teaching, but being confident to try things and make mistakes. And, you know, especially during that COVID year and that year 1, it very much felt like if I put a foot wrong, it's going to be the end of the world because the students have already suffered so much, and, you know, there's no room to make mistakes. But now, you know, I'm willing to try things out. I'm willing to explore and you know, really, you know, test the limits of my students in how they can learn and what works best for them. So I really think the program, and again, especially year 2, has just allowed me that freedom to try things, be confident with them, take really useful things and apply them into my teaching, get rid of other things which haven't had an impact. And again, without that second year of being able to choose for myself and direct it for my own experiences, I don't think I would ever have had that, and I certainly wouldn't be as confident as I am in the classroom today. And, you know, also, Nathan, reflecting on sort of the people who have really had the impact in, you know, getting me there and supporting me along these 2 years. I completely agree. My mentor has been crucial to that development. I've actually changed schools in between year 1 and 2, so I've had 2 different mentors, but both of them have been, you know, really supportive in helping me with their mentor sessions on the ECF, and you know, helping me, you know, especially this year, think about my inquiry, tweak my questions, give me strategies to try in order to, develop that and try and get the results I'm looking for. So my mentor has been absolutely crucial, and I certainly wouldn't be able to get there without them. But also, I think it's only right I mention the ECT facilitators. In particular, Louise Asprey has been my facilitator for year 1 and year 2. I was super fortunate to actually work with Louise on my initial teacher training in my placement in one of my placement schools. So I've known Louise now for quite a number of years. Extremely, one of the ultimate sources of knowledge when it comes to classroom strategies, especially metacognition. I often refer to her as the metacognition god, because she just blows my mind with her wealth of knowledge and all the strategies she can give to me. But the sessions that she's led on the throughout year 1 and year 2 have really allowed me that room to reflect on my own practice, and she's guided me, tweaking my inquiry questions or giving me that platform to discuss it with other trainees, not trainees, sorry, ECTs in other areas and in other schools. And those sessions really have been a fantastic focus for, again, allowing me to make the changes in my classroom. So I think Louise Asprey, it's only right that she gets some recognition here from my experience. And last but not least, again, what's really allowed me to engage with this program successfully has, ultimately been my school and my department. Again, I'll be reflecting and feeding back to my team when it comes to what I've found from this most recent inquiry project. But throughout the whole process, they've always been there to, again, offer me advice, offer me suggestions, just be a soundboard for me to, develop my train of thoughts and where I'm thinking of going with my inquiry projects, and without them getting on board and again, allowing me to use this time to focus on the priorities that I want to, rather than saying, oh, you should, you've got that time, focus on this, or you should be doing that. Giving me the freedom to really explore in a way I wanted to has just provided me all the opportunities to really, again, make a positive impact in my own classroom, which again, Mark, you were saying earlier, you wouldn't get that just from a journal or just from reading an academic piece of literature. You have to have that chance to try it for yourself. So yeah, that's sort of been my journey, and that's sort of the people who have really helped me get to this confident stage I am now.
When I started the ECT program, it was in the middle of the pandemic. Everything was about lockdowns, difficulty, no infrastructure. It was really, really difficult, really difficult. But Mark, you said that I keep pointing out that I'm really old, and I'm gonna say that again. To me, I think it's important that we that are experienced teachers are not afraid to try something really new. And this, for me, was the thing that I was not expecting from the ECT program. I was not, honestly. When we started, and I saw the handbook, and I say, all right, we're gonna go through this, and I had finished my training through the assessment route only, so most of the things were kind of fresh in my mind. Say, all right, we're gonna talk about this again, and we have conversations about this again. All right, but then when we started doing the research and talking about it, I really felt something like there was a switch that was being turned on inside my teacher head, and I figure out, okay, this is something really new and exciting, which me, this very old fella, can try in the classroom. And when I realized that it was something that was easy to do, relatively easy, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but not really steep. And when I learned how to do it, I really took it on board. And not only that, but as you guys have been saying, our mentor meetings, they have been so incredibly helpful. And it's just to learn with some, like my meetings with Matt, they were amazing. To learn with somebody's experience. You might have an idea, and then I voiced my idea to my mentor and say, yeah, I've tried that before. It didn't work quite well. And then they say, all right, I'm gonna try and get another approach, because it's, as we say, it's pointless to try and reinvent the wheel. So my mentor was trying to guide me with this processes. And I mean, you have a good idea, Daniel, but I've tried that before, it didn't work. So let's try this approach. And then we try the approach and it kind of works better. And by doing that, I would say that when I started the program, I was kind of afraid, or not even afraid, resistant, I would say, in trying something new. Because 10 years teaching, I've seen a lot of things. And it was humbling, actually, to see that, no, not quite, Daniel. You haven't seen the whole of it. There's a lot going on in teaching. And it really kind of presented me with another part of the teaching career, which I hadn't thought about, which was trying something new and not being afraid of it. And it was, for me, it was the most valuable thing I'm going to always remember from the ECT program.
Thanks for sharing that with us. It's really humbling to hear, and one of the things that really struck me was the recognition from all of you, really, that good teaching really means constantly trying to be a better teacher, and that none of you consider yourselves the finished article, but actually you're really excited about continuing to progress. That was really humbling. It's sad that we're coming to the end of our time in the staff room, and the caretaker might be about to kick us out. But before the caretaker kicks us out, we like to give all our guests a post-it note on which to write some advice on. It's your choice what you want to write on the post-it note and who you want to write the advice for and where you would like it to stick it for you. So Nathan, can I ask you to tell me what you've written on your post-it note and where you'd like us to stick it?
Yeah, so for me, I've said to be flexible and adaptable are some fantastic qualities, because no 2 days I've found in teaching are ever the same. So I try and take that approach every day, to be flexible and to be adaptable, because yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. Who would I give that to? I'd certainly top of my list would be like-minded teachers, like early career teachers like myself. Certainly trainee teachers that I see sometimes come in like rabbit in headlights, because they've been told they're going to teach a full day or for the first time. So I'd certainly give that to the trainees, early career teachers. But you know what, actually, just staff in general.
Mine would be to always remember to try new things and celebrate your mistakes. Because again, for me, this year 2 of the program really has, again, allowed me to innovate, try new things. And again, mistakes have been made. It's not going to be a road from A to B with no bumps. You're going to have a lesson where you try something brand new in the aim of your project and it just hasn't worked. And that's absolutely fine. And I really think, if I was thinking, where am I going to stick that post-it note? I think it should be on, every staff room of every school up and down the country, because I think that should be a reminder to every member of staff that it's okay to make mistakes. And again, try and either find the opportunity or make the opportunity for yourself to try new things in the classroom. Like you were saying, Elaine, no one's a finished product. We certainly don't consider it ourselves. And, I think the best teachers never consider themselves a finished product. There's always a room to learn and develop in some way. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think everyone should try and get involved in the ECF program to some degree. Again, whether that is being a mentor or whether that's, being, somebody who hosts the sessions, or whether it is just speaking to the ECTs who are engaging with the program and hearing what they've got to say and listening to, the findings of their inquiry projects, whether that's in staff briefings or CPD sessions, giving ECTs a platform to share what they've explored, and therefore, more experienced members of staff would be able to reflect on it and think, oh, that's something I could try in my classroom, or it's been a while since I tried that strategy. It's certainly not about, starting again and breaking down, things that have worked, because, again, I work in a school with my old teachers. I'm certainly not in a position to tell them how to teach it. And, I've experienced fantastic teaching in my own lifetime. But, again, I think just helping them remind themselves that it's okay to try new things and make more mistakes along the way.
My post-it note reads like this. Your mentor will help you see the classroom with a set of lenses you don't have yet. And I would take a picture of it and I would change the background of my desktop. The ones I'm typing my ECT activities because I'm starting, I would make this my background image. So I write this for the ECTs that are starting. Remember, we have to remember this. We've just got started and we have so much to learn, so much to learn. And teaching is fascinating every day because of that. We are not teachers. We don't decide to be teachers for the money because it's not there. We don't decide to be teachers for the prestige no, we decide to be teachers because we really believe that we can impact the lives of young people and we can inspire the next generation. And we need somebody to guide us through that journey. And our mentors are there for that. So I will say, talk to your mentor as often as you can. Have a laugh with your mentor and express your sadness sometimes to your mentor, just your frustrations, and remember that they have been there before and you are not alone. We are always learning. I mean, for as long as we do this job. That's my advice.
That's just lovely to hear, Daniel. I have just looked out the staff room window and I've noticed that the head teacher's car is no longer in the car park. We've been here for quite a long time. Our coffee is going cold. I vote that we should all head round to Daniel's Brazilian coffee bar. Anybody up for that?
Yeah.
But as the bell rings,
Absolutely.
I think we need to clear out, pick up your bags on the way out, clean your coffee mug. And thank you so much, Nathan and Mitchell and Daniel, for your time, your insight, your energy, your humility, all of that. And you've inspired us. I know that I speak for Elaine as well. So thank you. And we hope we see you on your travels some point soon.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Please do get in touch with us if you think you would like to chat about your ECF experience. In the meantime, do join us next time for a biscuit and a chat with another colleague in the ECF staff room.
Thanks so much for downloading and listening to this IOE podcast.